Hi, David here, and welcome back to the channel, looking at the automatic writings of the early 20th century medium, James Padgett. In the last video, we looked at a couple of messages that James received from his parents, both of which explain something of soulmate love, but they also mentioned again the progress they were making through sharing divine love more fully. In this video, we're going to let James's wife Helen tell us more about this and the rapid progress that she has been able to make. We're also going to look at a message from Eugene Crowell, who was a writer on the spirit world during his earthly life, correcting some of what he believed while he was here. The message from Helen was delivered on March 3rd, 1915. I am here, Helen. I am happy to say that I have this love now to a considerable degree, and the more I get of it, the happier I am. In saying this, Helen is referencing God's love, or divine love. I thought that I was happy when I entered the third sphere, and more so in the fifth, and then supremely so in the seventh. But I really did not know what happiness was until I got into my present home in the celestial heavens. This describes quite remarkable progress, which goes beyond what has traditionally been thought possible within spiritualism. I mentioned in a previous video that spiritualism has tended to think in terms of 7 spiritual heavens. And I have also mentioned that we see in the Padgett writings the teaching of divine love as something that can be shared in so as to transcend those 7 spiritual heavens, so as to progress to what Padgett's communicators refer to as celestial heavens. In the Orthodox churches of the Eastern Mediterranean, there is a doctrine of theosis, meaning union with God, which doesn't get the attention it deserves, partly because there is debate over exactly what it means and over how it happens. What we get in the Padgett messages is an explanation of what it means and how it is achieved. I mention that little bit of church history because it's interesting that there is still that faint echo of something that was originally central to what Jesus teaches and which becomes central to the Padgett messages. We also see in Helen's words just how rapid progress can be when we seek that divine love. This message was delivered in March 1915, less than a year after James started trying to receive messages by way of automatic writing. In that short time, we have seen Helen's progression to the third sphere, and then not only to the fifth and seventh spheres, but beyond that to the celestial heavens. Calling them the celestial heavens sounds a bit poetic, I know, but it's just a way of indicating those environments that are suited to those who share in divine love and which lie beyond the spiritual spheres. But by any measure, Helen's progress has been remarkably swift. You'll notice that she makes no reference to the fourth or sixth spheres, and we'll come back to why that might be in a future video. Anyway, Helen's message continues. I suppose as I go higher, the happiness of each succeeding progressive sphere will be so much greater than the one from which I progressed. But of course, the Master has been the great teacher whose love and power have helped me more than all the others. He is so wonderful in love and wisdom that I almost adore him, although he says that I must worship God only, and I follow his directions. So again, we have that familiar caution against worshipping Jesus. She continues, my experiences here are so wonderful that I hardly realize what it all means. My time in the spirit world has been so short, and yet the wonderful knowledge of spiritual truths and the great happiness that I have received caused me to wonder in amazement that such things could be. You have had a long writing session tonight, and I think I had better stop. So good night, your loving wife, Helen. The next message I want to take a look at was delivered on March 17, 1915, so just a couple of weeks after that one from Helen. This message is from Dr. Eugene Crowell, who is the author of The Spirit World, Its Inhabitants, Nature and Philosophy, first published in 1879. Crowell was a medical doctor who became a wealthy man in San Francisco, in California, even being elected to the city council. He invested in Thomas Edison's projects, for a time serving as president of the Edison Electric Light Company. But we're interested in him for the moment because of his interest in mediumship and communication with spirit, and understanding the greater reality that this earth is part of. The message begins, I am here, Edward Crowell. By permission of your band, I will write you a little, as I see that you are reading my book, and I am consequently interested in your right understanding of it. At this point, Padgett seems to query what Crowell wrote about Jesus. Well, as you have observed, I did not look upon Jesus as a god, but merely as a very high medium, and in great favour with the high spirit powers. And that is correct so far as it goes, but he is more than that. He is the highest and most enlightened and most powerful of all the spirits, and is the only one of all the great prophets, or seers, or reformers, or messengers of God, who ever taught the true and only way to the kingdom of heaven. And the sooner all spiritualists recognize and believe this fact, the sooner will true spiritualism be established on earth, and the love of the Father be implanted in each soul. All these things I have learned since I came over here, and had the opportunity of investigating the truth at first hand with all my powers, which are not limited or encumbered with the physical senses. So you must, in reading my book, eliminate everything from what you may accept as true that teaches or intimates that Jesus is not the great master and teacher of the true and only way to God's love and salvation. Of course, all spirits do not understand or believe this, and when John said, try the spirits and learn whether they be true or not, he meant just what I have told you. I know now that Jesus is the most exalted Son of God, and while we are all his sons, yet none of us is so at one with him as the Master. So as you are investigating this question of spiritualism in true earnestness, I thought it best to tell you what I have learned, as I do not want any expression in my book of a meaning contrary to what I have here expressed cause you to doubt for one moment the truths that Jesus and your band have been teaching you. You are wonderfully favoured in having such a teacher, and I believe the result shall be that when you shall have received his messages and transmitted them to the world, spiritualism will become the religion of the whole earth. This is my belief, and it is founded on the fact that it will then teach, besides the continuity of life and spirit communication, the great truths that will show men the absolute necessity of following these teachings of the Master in order to become the true children of the Father and be received by him in his kingdom of love and divine existence. I must not take up more time now, but will write to you again if permitted. It's clear from this why Crowell has been given the opportunity to write. Having recognized Jesus as a person who displayed mediumistic abilities, and having written about him accordingly, Crowell has learned since passing over that Jesus is more than this. specifically that Jesus focuses on the teaching of divine love and the possibility of this being implanted in each soul, as well as personally embodying the truth of this teaching. You'll see that Crowell also refers to the kingdom, or the kingdom of heaven, which again is very traditional Christian language. There were followers of Jesus who expected or wanted him to establish an earthly kingdom that would mean liberation from Rome. But Jesus was also always clear that any kingdom he led would not be of this earthly world. Christians have often taken this to mean that Jesus was therefore referring to the spirit world generally, or whatever form the life hereafter takes. The problem with this is that everyone passes to spirit, whether or not they're a Christian, or follow some other religion or none. Even people who don't believe in any kind of afterlife pass to spirit. It's a natural process, like being born into this world. Instead, Crowell is using kingdom to refer to what we saw Helen refer to as the celestial heavens, beyond the seven spiritual heavens. We will see this usage frequently in the months ahead. The final part of Crowell's message is quite fun because it gives us another insight into the practical realities of mediumship. You might have noticed that the message starts with Crowell introducing himself as Edward Crowell. Padgett has been reading his book, so he knows what his name should be, and asks him if what he has written is correct. Crowell replies, yes, it is. When Padgett points out that he has written Edward instead of Eugene, Crowell responds, well, I thought that you wrote Eugene. I cannot see what you have written at the time of its being written, and when I guide your hand and impress your brain, I think that you have written as I intended. Eugene Crowell, that is my name. The writing of Edward is not what I intended. What seems to have happened here is that in Padgett's mind, Crowell's attempt to get his own name through has instead triggered the more familiar name Edward. I've noticed this in my own mediumship occasionally. Sometimes what happens when someone in spirit is trying to get something across is that your mind latches onto the closest thing it can recognize. Names can be a bit tricky to get across because if it's an unfamiliar one, there's no underlying idea or concept to latch onto. Names are just labels. Padgett then asks about Crowell's passing. Yes, in 1886 at San Francisco, California. This is true, and you will find an account of my passing over in the newspapers of June 7, 1886, in the San Francisco newspapers. So examine for yourself, and you will find what I say to be true. Well, I will say good night. Your recent spirit friend, Eugene Crowell. Again, something has gone slightly awry here because we know from the historical record that Crowell died in 1894, not 1886. Again, with dates and numbers, there's the same problem that they are just labels. There's no underlying idea for the brain to catch. And this can come down to how the medium's brain is trained. One medium I heard people talk about before my time, who was excellent at conveying street names and numbers reliably, was a postman whose mind was trained to pay attention to numbers and addresses. And that was a trait that his spirit communicators could utilize. So that message from Eugene Crowell is interesting for those two little glitches, which give us a little glimpse of what goes on behind the scenes with mediumship. But of course, the content is its real value in terms of learning about spirit and about divine love. Immediately after that message from Crowell, James was contacted by his father, John, commenting on it. "I am here, your father. Well, my son, I have not written you for some time, as you have not given me the opportunity, but it was best, as you have received much valuable information from the others that have written you. I am your guardian angel and will be as long as you live on earth. I know that Helen is with you very much of the time, and of course is much more interested in you than any of us, and tries so hard to make you happy. Nevertheless, she is not your guardian angel. White Eagle is your guide in a great many things, and is faithful too, but he is not the one designated by the higher powers to perform the duties of a guardian angel. So do not think that I am not with you, trying to help and sustain you in your troubles and cares, for I am." Interesting paragraph. We don't always think of family members as being our guardian, but it does happen. We've not met White Eagle before, but he works with Padgett and has an interest in healing. There's a long tradition of spiritualist mediums having First Nation Americans as guides. I can put my own hand up here too. This is also a feature of Shaker practice back in the 1820s and 1830s, which then appears in spiritualism when it gets going in the 1840s and 1850s. Anyway, Padgett's father continues, "The spirit of the man who wrote the book that you are reading, I did not know him until he came to write and introduced himself as the author of the book and said that Jesus recommends him. Of course, we consented for him to write. He is a spirit of the fifth sphere where I live, and I shall see more of him now, and it may be that he will join our band, for he is a wonderfully intellectual man and well versed in spiritual truths. He is not filled with this great love, as are your grandmother, mother, and Helen, but he will make a desirable addition, and I believe that all the band will consent, especially as Jesus has recommended him." This is interesting because it lets us see that the group of people working with Padgett does change slightly over time, I suppose like any ongoing committee. It's also interesting to see that Padgett's father is making progress. It's only a few months since we saw him in the second sphere, but now here he is in the fifth. It does seem that this possibility of rapid progress is part of what the messages are telling us, because there seem to be many people in spirit who either don't make progress or reach a certain point where they feel comfortable, and the possibility of or need for further progress doesn't seem to be apparent to them. So onwards and upwards, always. I'm not going to go through the rest of John's message just here, just to say that it describes the progress of various family members so as to let James see who is progressing and who isn't. That said, I will include the full text in the transcript of the video, which I'll upload to my Medium account. Link in the video description, as usual. In the next video, we are going to look at a message from Padgett's grandmother, Anne Rollins, where she homes in on what divine love is and how it differs from natural human love. It's a fascinating message, so I hope you'll join me for that. In the meantime, I hope you have a good few days ahead of you, and if you've enjoyed this video, like it and subscribe, as it does help to introduce the channel to others. And make sure you click on the little bell so you get notified when the next video is uploaded. In the meantime, take care, and I'll see you soon.